What drives me crazy, and what should probably drive you crazy too, is watching people treat investing like a game of excitement instead of a system of priorities. They throw money into the stock market as if they are feeding coins into a slot machine, while credit card debt is sitting right beside them, charging them 22% interest and quietly laughing at every buy order they place. That is not wealth building, that is trying to fill a bucket while ignoring the large holes in the bottom. I have spent a lifetime studying how systems work. Economies are systems, markets are systems, debt is a system, human behavior is a system, and one of the most common mistakes people make with money is not that they fail to work hard. It is not even that they fail to save. It is that they do things in the wrong order. The order matters, the sequence matters. If you get the sequence wrong, you can work for years and wonder why you are still not moving forward. You can invest, you can save, you can read financial news, you can feel productive, but if the underlying structure is wrong, the results will be weak because the foundation is weak. Think about building a house. You would not begin with expensive lighting, beautiful countertops, and furniture if the foundation was cracked and the roof was leaking, yet that is exactly how many people handle money. They get excited about an ETF, a hot stock, a crypto idea, or whatever is being discussed online that week, while their financial foundation is still full of cracks. They do the interesting thing before they do the necessary thing. That is how people stay poor even when they make decent income. That is how intelligent people lose money. And that is how the financial system takes advantage of people who have never been taught the proper order of operations. The most important principle is this: before you try to maximize returns, you must first reduce the risks that can knock you out of the game. You do not win by being aggressive first. You win by surviving first, then compounding, then optimizing. Most people reverse that. They want optimization before stability. They want market exposure before resilience. They want returns before control. That is backward. And the numbers show how fragile many people really are. About 1 in 3 Americans does not even have an emergency fund. The median amount Americans have saved for emergencies is about $500. That is less than many monthly car payments. It is even down from about $600 a year earlier. Think about that carefully. A person with $500 in emergency savings can be financially destroyed by a broken transmission, a medical bill, a job interruption, or one unexpected repair. Yet many of those same people are wondering whether they should buy individual stocks or speculate on something volatile. That is like asking whether you should buy a Ferrari when you do not have enough money to fix the car you already drive. This is why the first move is not glamorous. It is not exciting. It will not make you feel like a genius. But it is the base layer of everything that follows. Before you invest a single dollar into anything risky, you need an emergency reserve. An emergency reserve is not just money for bad events. It is a psychological protection system. It prevents panic, it gives you time, it keeps you from making bad decisions when life creates pressure. And one of the most important things I learned from studying crises is that people usually make their worst decisions when they are forced to act under stress. If your car breaks down and you have no reserve, you may put the repair on a credit card at 22% interest. If you lose your job and you have no reserve, you may sell investments during a market decline. If you get a medical bill and you have no reserve, you may borrow on bad terms. That is how one small problem turns into a compounding problem. The emergency fund stops that chain reaction. People often ask how much should be in the emergency fund. The traditional answer is 3 to 6 months of living expenses. But that range is too broad to be useful unless you understand your own risk. If you have a stable job, strong benefits, and predictable expenses, 3 months may be enough. If you are self-employed, a freelancer, or in an unstable industry, you may need 6 months or more. The principle is not the number. The principle is resilience. Start with the first $1,000 as quickly as possible. That covers many small emergencies and gives you a psychological cushion. Then build toward 1 month of living expenses, then build toward 3 months after that. Decide whether your life requires more. Do not make the goal so large that you never start. The goal is to build a buffer that keeps you from being forced into bad choices. There is research showing that people with at least $2,000 in emergency savings had financial well-being scores 21% higher than people with no emergency fund. That is important because it shows that this is not just about arithmetic. It is also about behavior. When people feel less fragile, they make better decisions. The emergency fund is not there to make you rich. It is there to keep you from becoming poor at exactly the wrong time, once that reserve exists. The next thing is to remove high-interest debt. This is where many people get trapped because investing feels productive and debt repayment feels boring. But the boring thing is often the highest return available. If you have debt charging more than about 8% annually, especially credit card debt, that debt is a guaranteed negative compounding machine. Credit cards with interest rates above 20% are not just inconvenient. They are financial cancer. They grow faster than almost any reasonable investment return you can expect to earn over time. When you pay down debt at 22%, you are effectively earning a guaranteed 22% return because you stop paying that cost. That is better than what almost any investor can reliably produce. it is better than the long-term average of many of the best investors in history, and it is risk-free if you have $5,000 of credit card debt at 22% interest and you make only minimum payments. You can pay nearly $2,800 in interest over 5 years. That is not a fee, that is wealth transfer. That is your future income being moved to someone else because you did not close the hole in the bucket first. This is why carrying high-interest debt while investing aggressively is usually irrational. You are trying to earn uncertain returns while paying guaranteed losses. In markets, uncertainty is normal, but when you have a guaranteed 22% loss sitting in front of you, the right thing is not complicated. The proper method is simple. List every debt you have, write down the balance, the interest rate, and the minimum payment. Pay the required minimums on everything so you do not create new problems. Then direct every extra dollar toward the debt with the highest interest rate first. That is the debt avalanche method. It is mathematically strongest because it removes the most expensive debt first. Some people prefer the debt snowball method, which pays off the smallest balance first because it creates motivation. I understand that. Psychology matters. But if you are trying to build wealth in the most efficient order, the avalanche method is the cleaner system because it attacks the highest rate of guaranteed loss first. The principle is very simple. Stop the bleeding before you try to run faster. There is one major exception, and it is so important that it changes the sequence. If your employer offers a retirement match, you generally want to contribute enough to get that full match even before you finish eliminating all high-interest debt. That may sound contradictory, but the reason is straightforward. Employer matching is free money. It is often an immediate return that is higher than anything else available to you. If your employer matches 50 cents for every dollar you contribute up to a certain percentage of your salary, that is an immediate 50% return before the investment has done anything. If the match is dollar for dollar, that is an immediate 100% return. You do not ignore a guaranteed 50% or 100% return. Imagine earning $50,000 a year and your employer matches 50 cents on the dollar up to 6% of your salary if you contribute $3,000. The employer adds $1,500. That is $1,500 of money you would not otherwise have. You did not trade options for it. You did not time the market. You simply picked up the money your employer was offering. The key is discipline. You contribute only enough to get the full match. Then every additional dollar goes back toward high-interest debt until that debt is gone. Once the debt is gone, then you increase contributions again. There is one detail to understand. Some employers have vesting schedules. That means you may need to stay with the company for a period of time before you fully own the matching contributions. So you must understand the rules of your plan. But in most cases, even with vesting, the employer match is too valuable to ignore. At this stage, you now have the financial foundation, you have an emergency fund, you have attacked high-interest debt. You have captured the employer match that creates the base of the house. Without that base, everything else is built on quicksand with that base. You can move into the next layer, which is tax optimization. This is where people make another big mistake. They open taxable brokerage accounts and start buying investments before they have used the tax-advantaged accounts available to them. That is usually inefficient because taxes are one of the largest forces reducing long-term compounding. The government gives people certain boxes where money can grow with tax advantages. If you ignore those boxes and go straight to a taxable account, you are often choosing to give the IRS money earlier than necessary. The next priority is usually the individual retirement account. The IRA often comes before adding more to your employer plan beyond the match because it gives you more control. Many employer plans have limited investment menus. Some have expensive mutual funds. Some have administrative costs that eat into returns quietly over time. An IRA usually lets you choose low-cost index funds and ETFs with much broader flexibility. Small fees look harmless in 1 year. Over decades, they are not harmless. A fee of 1% or 2% may not sound dramatic, but compounded over 20, 30, or 40 years, it can remove tens of thousands of dollars from your final wealth. It is like termites in a wooden house. You may not notice the damage at first, but the structure weakens over time. In 2025, the IRA contribution limit is $7,000 or $8,000. If you are 50 or older, the catch-up contribution exists because time is limited and later savers need more room. But the main point is that the IRA gives many people low-cost investment control and tax advantages in one place. Then comes the important decision between traditional and Roth accounts. This decision is about whether you want to pay taxes now or later. Traditional accounts generally give you a tax deduction today. You contribute pre-tax money, the money grows, and then you pay taxes when you withdraw it in retirement. Roth accounts work the other way. You contribute money after paying taxes today. Then the money grows, and qualified withdrawals in retirement are tax-free. The right choice depends on your tax rate today compared with your expected tax rate later. If you are in a high tax bracket now and expect to be in a lower bracket in retirement. Traditional accounts may make sense because the deduction today is valuable. If you are early in your career and in a lower tax bracket now, Roth accounts may make sense because paying the tax today at a lower rate can be better than paying it later at a higher rate. The difficulty is that nobody knows future tax policy with certainty. Forecasting tax rates decades ahead is like forecasting weather months ahead. You can reason in probabilities, but you cannot know. That is why some people benefit from tax diversification, meaning they hold both traditional and Roth assets so they have flexibility later. In systems thinking, flexibility is valuable because the future is uncertain. You do not want your entire retirement plan dependent on one prediction about future tax rates. If you have access to a health savings account, the next layer becomes very powerful. The HSA is one of the most underused financial tools in America because people think of it as a medical spending account instead of an investment vehicle. But properly understood, it can be one of the most tax-efficient accounts available. An HSA can give you 3 tax advantages. You may get a deduction when you contribute. The money can grow tax-free while invested, and withdrawals for qualified medical expenses can be tax-free. That combination is unusual. Most accounts give you 1 or 2 advantages. The HSA can give all 3. For 2025, the contribution limit is $4,300 for individual coverage and $8,550 for family coverage. But you must have a high deductible health plan to qualify, and that type of plan is not right for everyone. If you have large recurring medical expenses, you must be careful. If you are young, healthy, and able to handle the deductible risk, the HSA can be extremely powerful. The best strategy, if you can afford it, is to pay current medical expenses out of pocket and let the HSA money stay invested. Then you keep the receipts. There is no time limit on reimbursing yourself for qualified medical expenses. That means you could pay a medical bill today, keep the receipt, and reimburse yourself from the HSA many years later tax-free, assuming the rules are followed. After age 65, the account becomes even more flexible. You can withdraw money for non-medical purposes and pay income tax on it, similar to a traditional retirement account. But medical expenses in retirement are highly likely, so having a pile of tax-free money reserved for healthcare can be one of the strongest protections against one of retirement's biggest costs. The math can become powerful if someone maxes out HSA contributions for 30 years and earns a 7% annual return. The account could grow to more than $400,000 in money that may be available tax-free for medical expenses, and the average couple retiring today can spend more than $300,000 on healthcare across retirement. That is not a small issue. Healthcare is one of the largest uncertain liabilities in retirement. The HSA is one way to build a dedicated reserve for that risk. Once the HSA is maximized, the next priority is to go back to the employer retirement plan and contribute beyond the match for 2025. The 401k contribution limit is $23,500 for most people, or $31,000. If you are 50 or older at this stage, you are using the tax system in a much smarter way between the IRA, the HSA, and the 401k. Someone under 50 could potentially shelter more than $35,000 a year from current taxation depending on eligibility and circumstances. That is serious. It means more of your money compounds for you rather than being reduced by taxes each year. And this is where you start to see why order matters so much. The emergency fund prevents forced selling. Debt elimination removes guaranteed negative compounding. Employer matching captures free money. IRA contributions give control and tax advantages. HSA contributions create triple tax benefits. 401k contributions expand tax-deferred or tax-free compounding. Each layer protects and strengthens the next. That is how good systems work. They are not a collection of random actions. They are a sequence of reinforcing actions. Most people never reach this stage. The average American saves about 6% of income, which often is not enough to capture the full employer match, max an IRA, max an HSA, and max a 401k if you can work through this sequence. You are already behaving differently from most people. You are not chasing excitement. You are building a machine, and machines, when properly designed, produce outcomes. Only after all of those tax-advantaged options are being used does the taxable brokerage account become the next major place for investment capital. This is the part most people wanted to start with from the beginning. A taxable account gives freedom. You can buy individual stocks, you can buy index funds, you can buy ETFs, you can hold money for a house down payment, you can build a bridge to early retirement, you can invest without contribution limits, you can access the money without waiting until traditional retirement age. That flexibility is valuable, but flexibility comes with tax drag. In a taxable account, dividends can be taxed, capital gains can be taxed when you sell, interest can be taxed every year. Some part of the return may be reduced by taxes. That matters because compounding depends on keeping as much money as possible working for as long as possible. A simple example shows the difference. If you invest $10,000 a year for 30 years at a 7% return in a tax-advantaged account, the final balance could be around $944,000. In a taxable account with the same underlying return but with taxes on dividends and gains along the way, The ending value could be closer to $700,000. That gap, nearly $250,000, comes from tax drag. It is not because the investor worked harder. It is not because the investor picked better stocks. It is simply because the money was placed in a less efficient structure. That is why taxable accounts generally come later in the sequence. But once the earlier accounts are handled, taxable accounts become useful and important. They can fund goals before retirement age, they can provide liquidity, they can support early retirement, they can help with a home purchase, they can be part of an estate plan because taxable assets may receive a step up in basis when passed to heirs, which can reduce or eliminate capital gains taxes under current rules. This is why there are no universal answers without context. A taxable account is not bad. Starting there too early is often bad. The account itself is a tool. The question is whether the tool is being used in the right order. This is how I would think about the entire structure. You start by making sure life cannot easily knock you into panic. That is the emergency fund. Then you remove debts that are compounding against you faster than most investments can compound for you. Then you collect free employer money. Then you use retirement accounts that give you tax advantages and better control. Then, if available, you use the HSA because healthcare risk is real and the tax benefits are unusually strong. Then you expand contributions to your employer plan. Then you use taxable accounts for flexibility, early access, and goals outside traditional retirement. That is the order. It is not exciting, but it is powerful. It is not designed to make you feel clever. It is designed to make you resilient. And resilience is the thing most investors underestimate. A person who follows the proper order may look boring for years. They are not chasing the hot stock. They are not bragging about the newest trade. They are not trying to impress strangers. They are building layers of protection and compounding. They are improving the structure quietly. Then, after enough time, the difference becomes obvious. The person who chased excitement may have a few wins, a few losses, and a lot of confusion. The person who followed the order has a system. There is a principle I come back to often: good outcomes come from good decisions repeated over time. Bad outcomes come from bad decisions repeated over time. Most people do not destroy themselves with one giant mistake. They destroy themselves with a sequence of small decisions made in the wrong order. They invest before building a reserve. They speculate before clearing high-interest debt. They ignore employer matches. They pay unnecessary taxes. They choose complexity before simplicity. They call it ambition, but often it is disorder. The wealthy do not just own better assets. They usually have better systems. They know where each dollar should go next. They know which problem has the highest priority. They know when a guaranteed return is better than an uncertain one. They understand that avoiding a 22% loss can be more valuable than chasing a possible 10% gain. That is how money works. It is not only about what you buy, it is about when you buy it, where you hold it, what debt you carry while you buy it, and what risks can force you to sell it if you do not understand that. The market can rise and you can still fail. If you do understand that, you can build wealth slowly and rationally, even without being a genius. The truth is that most people want the stock pick, they want the trick. They want the shortcut, they want the thing that will make them feel like they found a secret. But the real secret is usually the thing people avoid, because it is too plain. Have cash for emergencies, stop paying 22% interest, take free money, use tax shelters, invest consistently, keep costs low. Let compounding work. That is not a slogan, it is a sequence. And the sequence is what protects you from your own behavior, because the biggest risk in personal finance is not usually the market. It is not usually the Federal Reserve. It is not usually the economy. The biggest risk is the human tendency to do the exciting thing before the important thing. That is why you need rules. Rules reduce the chance that emotion runs the system. When markets rise, rules stop you from chasing too aggressively. When markets fall, rules stop you from panicking. When a new opportunity appears, rules help you decide whether your foundation is ready for it. Without rules, every financial decision becomes a reaction to fear, greed, pressure, or social comparison. That is a bad way to live. So if I were speaking to someone trying to build wealth from the beginning, I would not start by asking what stock they like. I would ask something much simpler. Do you have an emergency fund? Do you have high interest debt? Are you getting the employer match? Have you used your IRA? Are you eligible for an HSA? Have you maxed the tax advantage space you reasonably can? Do you understand why taxable accounts come after those layers? Those questions are less entertaining than stock predictions, but they are far more important. And if your answer to several of them is no, that is not something to be ashamed of. It is just information. Good decision making begins with seeing reality clearly. Do not feel bad because the foundation is unfinished. Just stop pretending the roof should be built first. Start where the system says to start. Build the reserve. Kill the most expensive debt. Capture the match. Use the tax advantages. Then invest with patience. If you do that, you will be ahead of most people. Not because you are smarter, but because you are doing the right things in the right order. That is the point. Wealth is not built by random intensity. It is built by structured consistency. The optimal order will not trend on social media because it is not dramatic. It will not make you feel like you discovered the next explosive investment. But it can save you tens of thousands of dollars protect you from avoidable mistakes, and speed up your path to financial independence. And it works because it aligns with reality. Debt with high interest is a guaranteed negative return. Employer matching is a guaranteed positive return. Taxes reduce compounding. Emergency reserves reduce forced mistakes. Health expenses are predictable in the long run, even if they are unpredictable in timing. Taxable accounts are flexible but less efficient. Once you see those facts, the sequence becomes obvious. The hard part is not understanding it. The hard part is doing it when everyone else is chasing excitement. But that is also where the advantage comes from. Most people do what feels interesting. The people who build lasting wealth do what is structurally correct. So do not ask, where can I make the most exciting return this month? Ask, where is the next dollar most useful in my system? Sometimes the answer will be the emergency fund. Sometimes it will be debt repayment. Sometimes it will be a retirement contribution. Sometimes it will be an HSA. Sometimes it will be taxable investing. The answer changes as the system changes. That is why personal finance has to be treated like a living system, not a one-time decision. If you follow the order, your future self will not remember that it was boring. Your future self will remember that it worked. And that is what matters. Because the goal is not to look smart today. The goal is to become financially independent, structurally resilient, and free enough to make your own decisions without being trapped by emergencies, debt, taxes, or panic. That is what the right order gives you. Not excitement, freedom.